Does your vote count in Ohio? Welcome to My Vote Doesn't Count, the series where we look at how valuable your vote is using math. While I love Ohio because it's the coaster capital of the world, it is also, unfortunately, a very red state. So let's start off with the most unlikely elected position to flip blue, and that's the governor of Ohio. Non Whaley was the Democratic candidate for governor. She got about 37% of the vote with about 1,545,000 votes. So what would it have taken to flip Ohio blue for the governor seat? Well, doing the math, out of all of the registered voters who have nothing stopping them from going to the polls, these are voters who have registered to vote and are all set up for the election but stayed home. If only 28% of those people decided to go and vote for Whaley, then she would be the governor of Ohio right now. But what about just estimated Democratic voters, right? A lot of those people aren't going to be Democratic voters. Well, if 3/4 of them went to the polls, again, these are people that are registered to vote and can vote and have voted before. If 73% of them went to the polls, then Ohio would have a Democratic governor. I need to remind you that this is actually the most difficult election in Ohio for the Democrats to win. Let's move along to the presidential election of 2020. The voter turnout here was 74%, so Ohio is actually doing really well in that department. But with that 74%, Donald Trump got only a little bit more than half of the votes, 53.2%. And Joe Biden got 45.2% of the vote, so it was very close. And what we find out doing the math is if 23% of all of these registered voters who didn't show up would have voted for Biden, it would have flipped blue. And this equates to about half of all of the estimated Democratic voters who stayed home for 2020. If half of the Democratic voters who are registered and ready to go decided to actually go and vote in 2020, then Ohio would have gone blue. Now let's look at the 2022 Senate race in Ohio. Vance won with only 53% of the vote. Tim Ryan, the Democratic candidate, got 46.9% of the vote. So this was also very, very close. And when you go do the math, you find out that only 7% of the voters who stayed home would have needed to vote for Tim Ryan in order to flip Ohio blue. 7%, or 14% of the estimated Democratic voters in Ohio. Which means if just 14% of the progressives in Ohio decided to actually go to the polls, then Ohio would have a 100% blue Senate. And Ohio should know this by now because Ohio in 2018 elected a Democratic senator. So yes, your vote matters tremendously in Ohio. Even though it's gerrymandered, all of the elections that I showed in this video were popular vote. And even though Ohio is heavily gerrymandered, if you show up to vote for these popular vote elections, you should still vote down ballot. Because if you vote down ballot in all of these elections, chances are you will win some of the gerrymandered districts. That's just how it works. Will it happen to all of them? Probably not, but it will happen to some of them if everybody freaking comes to the polls. And once you start gaining the majority in the Ohio State House, you can start fixing the gerrymandering problem. And the governor vote is popular vote. The governor can do a whole lot about the gerrymandering problem as well. You just have to show up to the polls. But what about voter suppression? What if your polling place is really far away or you don't have adequate transportation? There are nonprofits that exist in Ohio that can help you get to the polls for free and come back home. Ride to Vote specifically started in Ohio in 2020, so you can get a ride to the polls. You can also request an absentee ballot so you can vote by mail. And you can request an absentee ballot starting on January 1st up to 90 days before the election, so anybody in Ohio can make it work. So anyway, your vote counts in Ohio as well as everywhere else, and if you don't believe me, leave your state in the comments and I can tell you why you're wrong. And in all of these videos, there's at least somebody coming to the comment section who hasn't watched the whole video complaining about voter suppression. And if you see somebody leaving a comment that hasn't watched the full video very obviously, go ahead and call them a banana. In my channel, bananas are people that don't watch the full video but insist that there's something to complain about even though it was mentioned in the video. So go through and look in the comments and see if there are any bananas in there.